Yes, hello. Welcome back to the Rugby League Forecast podcast for your team lists for round 10 of the National Rugby League Telstra Premiership competition for season 2026. Thursday night at 7:50 p.m. at a core stadium. It is the Dolphins and the Bulldogs. Let's have a look here at the two sides. Let's have a look at the Dolphins and the way they line up this week. The Hammer at fullback, Hamiso Tabuai Fido. The two wingers, Jermaine Asako and Herbie Farnworth. Selwyn Cobbo, I should say. Jack Bostock and Herbie Farnworth in the centres, Brad Schneider, Isaiah Katoa in the halves, Tom Flegler, Max Plath at number 9 and Francis Molo at 10. The edge forwards, Connelly, Lemu Elu and Kulikefu Fine Fuiaki, and lock in the scrum as Morgan Knowles. Now, on the benches, Ray Stone, Tom Gilbert, Felice Kafusi, Oren Keeley, and 18 and 19 is Cody Nikorima and Jeremy Marshall-King. So in this game, my prediction would be that Jeremy Marshall-King will start, obviously, at 5'8". Jeremy Marshall-King will play his first game of the season. He will start at dummy half, which will, in my opinion, put Max Plath to start at lock forward, which will then make Morgan Knowles come on off the bench at some time throughout the game. That's how I believe it will work in this game, which will see either Ray Stone or Oren Keeley drop off and not play in this game. That's how I believe it will happen, but we'll see how we go. The number 20 in the reserves is Trey Fuller, Davida Nafahu at 21 and 22, Lewis Simons. Let's have a look at the Bulldogs at fullback, Connor Tracy, the two wingers, Jonathan Sewer and Anari Tuala, the centres at Bronson Sherry, and Stephen Crichton has been named. There have been reports that they will give him up until captain's run to show that he is ready and confirmed to play. He had a niggling injury after that game last week against the Cowboys. The halves, Matt Burton and Lachlan Galvin. Up front, Sam Hughes, Bailey Hayward at starting dummy half, and Leo Thompson. The edge forwards, Tilly Tupanua, Jacob Preston and Jamin Salmon. On the bench, Akala Sami Jones, Sean O'Sullivan at 15, Harry Hayes at 16, Josh Curran at 17. Now the reserves, Marcelo Montoya at 19, 20, Lipoi Hopoi. And the reserves, Jethro Rinakama, the young outside back there for Canterbury, and Gordon Chan Kum Tong at 22. The 23 is Logan Spinks. So for me in this game, obviously you've seen Marcelo Montoya dropped last week. Cameron Serrato came out and said it's got nothing to do with his attitude. It's simply for him to work on his technical side of things, especially in attack. Basically, I reckon he will start, which will see, I think that'll see Jonathan Sewer drop out of the side. And you'll see Anari Tuala and Marcelo Montoya play in this game. So going to be an interesting watch. A few changes to come in that game, I believe. Now, the 6 p.m. game, Friday at 6 p.m. between the Roosters and the Titans. The Roosters in fine form at the moment. Let fullback James Tedesco, the two wingers Daniel Tupou and Cody Ramsey. What a fantastic story to see him come back into this game. The centres are Hugo Savala and Robert Toya. The halves are Daly Cherry Evans and Sam Walker. Up front, Nafahu White, Reece Robson at dummy half and Spencer Lenu starting in this game. The back rowers are Angus Crichton, Siwa Wong, and at lock is Victor Radley. On the bench is Connor Watson, Egan Butcher at 15, Nat Butcher at 16, and Celeste Fiketti at 17. 18 is Taylor Lasalu, and 19 is the young dummy half Benaya Iolu, who obviously started the first few games at dummy half earlier in the year while Reece Robson was injured with that broken hand. The reserves are Fatali Punga, 21 is Reece Foley, and 22 is Billy Smith. Now, my only change in this game is Billy Smith to start in the centres, which will see Hugo Safala come onto the field from the bench at some point throughout the game. That's the change that may be made. For me personally, I'd probably start with Savala in the centres and keep him there in the centres for the rest of the year. As good as Billy Smith has been, he is very injury prone at the moment. He obviously had an off-field incident on his e-bike, I think it was, and he hasn't played since. So he had an injury there. So, I'd love to see him named, but for me at the moment, I think Hugo Savala is doing a fantastic job in attack and defence to hold on to that number 3 jersey in the centres for the Sydney Roosters. Let's have a look at the Titans at fullback Keanu Kinney, the two wingers Jensen Tamapia, and Philip Sammy. The centres, Jojo Fafita and AJ Brimson. The halves is Jaden Campbell at 5'8" this time and making his NRL debut. Congratulations to the young halfback, a local junior for the Gold Coast Titans, Zane Harrison. Plenty of raps on this young kid, and I genuinely believe he will have a huge future in the NRL. Up front, Clace Haas and Tino. Big Tino there, the captain. The number 9 is Oliver Pascoe. And the back row is Chris Randall, who's moved from lock forward to the back row. Bo Firma at 12 and 13. 13, I've been calling this all year for Cooper Bye to wear the number 13 jersey and start at lock forward instead of coming on from the bench. I think that he did that in the preseason challenge. He was outstanding for them. I think he was one of the reasons why they did so well in the preseason challenge, starting at lock forward. I genuinely believe the aggression, the motivation and determination that he will have in that 13 jersey. I believe he'll be the 13 there at the Gold Coast Titans for many, many years to come. On the bench, Curtis Moran, Mo Fotuaika, Josh Patson and 17, Arama Howe. So Arama Howe's come out of the side in the starting 13 into the bench. So a young back rower there, started the season very well, but been a bit weak defensively over the last few weeks, I think it would be fair to say. The 18, Jalen de Groot, 19, Sam Verrill's been dropped out of the side. He'll be there as a reserve in case of an injury. He could play in this game, there's no doubt about it, but I think the 14 to 17 is the way they'll go to use their 4 out of 6 interchange in this game. The reserves are Lachlan Ilias, so he's been dropped into the reserves. 21, Aiden Christensen and Body Sharpley. I think it's a little bit harsh on Lockie Ilias. In my opinion, he's actually had a decent start to the year when he's played in the halves. But I mean, at the end of the day, Josh Hannay needs to make changes, and he needs to make them urgently because the performances from the Gold Coast Titans have not been good enough in the opening 9 weeks of this season. Now, the following game, this is the third game of the round and the second game on Friday night football between the Cowboys and the Parramatta Eels. Friday, 8 p.m. at QCB Stadium in Townsville. And fullback is Scott Drinkwater. The 2 wingers are Braden Burns and Zach Laybutt. No Murray Talangi. Very important to note in this game. He is out for the Cowboys in this game. The centres, Jackson Purdue and Thomas Chester has been up there with one of the best centres to start season 2026. And the halves, Jake Clifford and Tom Dearden. Up front, Cohen Hess, Reid Marnie at dummy half and Jason Tamalolo. The back rowers are Helam Lukey, Sam McIntyre and Ruben Cotter. Jeremiah Nanai. Important to note that he has been rubbed out for a long-term injury. He's redone a shoulder injury there last week against the Canterbury Bulldogs. So that's really, really sad to see. On the bench, Sonny Luke at 14, 15, Griffin Neem, 16, Thomas McKaylee, who's been absolutely outstanding coming on from the bench throughout the season. The energy and offloads he brings into this side helps change momentum for the Cowboys without a doubt. And the 17, Matt Lodge, 18, Xavier Kerisk, 19, Mason Barber, the young fullback at outside back there. And the reserves are Kai O'Donnell at 20, 21, Caden Lars, and 22, Robert Derby. For Parramatta, now we all know Parramatta have had many injuries so far this year. Matt Dury and Jermaine Hopgood out for the whole season due to foul play. For me, they should be compensated absolutely for the salary cap. Very unfortunate there for Parramatta, but let's see how they line up. Of course, no Isaiah Iongi expected to return in another few weeks for Parramatta. Joash Papali'i lines up at fullback. The 2 wingers are Brian Kelly and Josh Adokar, the Fox. Jordan Samrani in the centres with Jordan Russell. The 6 is Ronald Volkman. Gee, he's been good to replace. I forgot his name. I apologise. Jonah Pezzett. The 7 is Mitchell Moses. Up front, Luca Moretti, Talon De Silva, and Junior Paulo. The back rowers are Kelma Talangi, Jack Williams, and Jack DeBellin locking the scrum there for the Parramatta Eels in this game. The 14 is Dylan Walker. Great to see him named on the bench. I love Dylan Walker's impact off the bench, and I think he's a bench player and can come on and help change momentum and the energy in a side when they are struggling at the moment. The number 15 is Saxon Pryke, 16, Tony Metelli, and 17, Charlie Geimer. Good young player, Charlie Geimer. Really rate him. Up at Twiddle, Tincum Brown and the reserves, Josiah Funa Luta, Aris Nirvana, Nanva, I should say, and the 22 is Lorenzo Tatalina. So that is how Parramatta line up. Let's have a look at Super Saturday, 3 p.m. at Wynn Stadium between the Dragons and the Knights. Let's go through the Dragons lineup for this game. Clint Gutherson, after a few weeks out injured, he comes back straight into the fullback position. The 2 wingers are Satu Tu and Matthew Figai. The centres are Moses Sully and Valentine Holmes, the halves, Daniel Atkinson, and the young gun, Cade Reid, Amray Gula up front, Damien Cook at dummy half, and Toby Couchman at front row. Dylan Egan coming back and playing his first game in the Dragons colours this season. 12 is Ryan Couchman and Hamish Stewart. Geez, a good young talent, a local junior, Hamish Stewart. They're doing a great job with him there at the Dragons. 14, Josh Kerr. 15, Lockhart Jr., Pacifica Tonga. 16, Blake Laurie. And 17, Jacob Halangahu. Now, 18 is Kyle Flanagan. I suggest he'll probably be there for the remainder of the season. And Tyrell Sloan at 19 didn't do enough to keep that fullback jersey. He has so much spark and attack, but defensively quite poor. So I can understand why Gutherson is starting at fullback in this game, because at the end of the day, I genuinely believe Clint Gutherson is their best option at fullback for at least the rest of the year until they can readjust their roster moving forward. Now, the reserves in this game, Licken King Tongia, Hame Sally at 21 and 22, Christian Tuapolotu, the young winger there. It's all about the money for Christian, tapping the money when he scores a try. I absolutely love it. I love his confidence, and it's great to see it in the game, in my opinion. Let's have a look at the Newcastle Knights, of course, coming off a win over the South Sydney Rabbitohs, 42 points to 38. Could you believe that high-scoring game? I can't remember the last time in the NRL a losing side such as South Sydney in that game in Newcastle at McDonald Jones Stadium had actually lost a game scoring 38 points. It's quite remarkable. Let's have a look at Newcastle in this game. At fullback, Kalen Ponga, the two wingers, Dominic Young and Greg Marziu. The centres are Dane Gagai and Bradman Best. The halves are Fletcher Sharp and Dylan Brown. Up front, Jacob Saifidi, Phoenix Crossland and Trey Mooney. The second row is Dylan Lucas, playing his first game last week and did a great job scoring multiple tries against the South Sydney Rabbitohs. 12 is Jermaine McEwen and 13 Matthew Croker. On the bench, 14 is Sandon Smith, Tyson Frizzell at 15, 16 Pasami Solo, and 17 Francis Manu Leilua. The 18 is Harrison Graham and 19 Fletcher Hunt, the young fullback there. And the reserves, Cody Hopwood, big raps on this young kid, Kyle McCarthy and James Schiller in the 22. Now, 5:30 Saturday at Core Stadium. We're back at a Core Stadium for the second time in this round between the South Sydney Rabbitohs and the Cronulla Sharks. The Rabbitohs line up with Jai Gray returning into the side after a few weeks out with an injury. So Alex Johnston and Edward Cossey lines up on the wings. The centres are Latrell Mitchell and Campbell Graham. The halves, Cody Walker and no Jamie Humphries. He'll be on the bench for this game. So Ashton Ward will play his first game of the season and starting in the number 7 jersey for the South Sydney Rabbitohs. Keon Kalamatangi and Sean Kepi line up at front row, with Bronson Garlick doing a tremendous job at dummy half, if I may say so. He's been fantastic for South Sydney, doing all the little things right, really tightening up the defence, and he doesn't miss a tackle. He's a fantastic defender, Bronson Garlick. Quite creative and quite skillful, but quite fast off the mark too. He can certainly help speed up the ruck when you least expect it. So he's got a lot of skill and talent, Bronson Garlick, coming from the Melbourne system. The back rowers are Ewan Aitken, Tallis Duncan, and the lock-in captain is Cameron Murray. On the bench is Matt Duffy at 14. I love that. 15, Lachlan Hubner. 16, Jamie Humphries. Tavita Totolo at 17. 18, Peter Mamazoulis, and 19, Adam Elliott, who is yet to play in the NRL this year for the South Sydney Rabbitohs. Of course, he left the Newcastle Knights at the back end of last year. Now, Jamie Humphries is great to have on the bench for me. He can cover lock forward as a ball-playing lock. His defence is very, very good. He can also cover the halves if there is an injury. And, of course, he can come on and play a bit of dummy half as well, where he played a lot of dummy half throughout the Manly juniors there. So, in my opinion, I think the South Sydney Rabbitohs line up very well in this game. Of course, there's still no Brandon Smith. We've got the reserves. 20, Liam LeBlanc. 21, Moala, Graham Tafua, and Thomas Fletcher, the young back rower, in the 22. For the Cronulla Sharks at fullback, Will Kennedy. The two wingers, Mawene Hiroti and Sam Stonestreet. The centres, Sifa Talakai and KL Iro. The halves are Braden Trindle and Nico Hines. Boy, oh boy, didn't they play well last week against the West Tigers. Adam Fanua Blake up front. Blake Brayley at 9 and 10, Toby Rudolph. The back rowers are Britton Okora, Teague Wilton, and Cameron McInnes, coming back a couple of weeks ago, doing a fine job there in that 13 jersey last week against the Tigers. On the bench, Jesse Colhoun. 15, Billy Burns, Oregon Kafusi, and Tom Hazelton at 17. 18, Hohepa Puru. 19, Braden Hamlin Ueli, and the reserves are Riley Jones, Nawai Puru, and Chris Valia in the 22 jersey. Now, the final game of Super Saturday is between the Manly Sea Eagles and the Broncos at Brookvale Oval. Let's have a look at this. 4 Points Park, Saturday, 7:35 p.m. at fullback. For the Manly Sea Eagles, Tolu Kola, the two wingers, Jason Saab and Lehigh Hopewadi, Clayton Faulolo in the centres alongside Ruben Garrick, and the halves are Luke Brooks and Jamal Fogarty, named in the 7 and expected to return and play in this game. 8, Taniela Paseka, 9, Brandon Wakeham, and 10, Ethan Bullimore, lining up in this game for the Kobe Hetherington Cup. Unfortunately, Kobe Hetherington will be unavailable due to his HIA concussion last week, a Category 1 he received, which means he automatically misses this game of football, which is disappointing against his old club that he won a premiership with last year in season 2025 over the Melbourne Storm. The back rowers, Haumole Olatuatu, Ben Travojevic, and Jake Travojevic will be the captain of this side in the 13 jersey. The benches, 14, Jake Simpkin, 15, Nathan Brown, 16, Jackson Sherab, and Siwa Takiaho in the 17 jersey. Now, Blake Wilson, the young winger, cover anywhere in the outside backs is 18, 19, Joey Walsh. The reserves, Josh Felaty, 21, Zach Docker-Clay, and Simeone Laifi is the young front rower that has re-signed at Manly, I believe, on a long-term deal in the 22. Now, the Broncos, many injuries. Best wishes to Dean Mariner. He could be out for the rest of the year. It's a huge blow to Brisbane. I think he offers so much, Dean Mariner. His kick returns, his defense is really good. A huge blow. So best wishes to him. They line up such as this at fullback, Reece Walsh, the two wingers, Josiah Karapani and Antonio Verhoeven. Now, I believe this will be Antonio Verhoeven. I believe this will be his NRL debut. So good luck to him. Actually, have a good game, but don't play too good. It is against my mighty Manly Sea Eagles. In the centres, Jesse Arthurs and Gibbet Shibasaki. Of course, no Katoni Staggs with a suspension. Now, the halves, Ezra Mam and no Adam Reynolds in this game. Thomas Duffy will line up in the 7 jersey, and he did a good job against the Sydney Roosters when he came on last week. 8, Ben Tolte, 9, Corey Pakes, and 10, Jack Gajeski. Of course, no Payne Haas in this game either. The back rowers, the 11, Xavier Willison, Jordan Rickey and Patrick Carrigan will be the captain of this side in the 13 jersey. On the bench, Josh Rogers, 15, Preston Rickey, 16, Va Semu, and 17, Alblix Tawa, the young 25 back rower that they bought from the Dolphins. So, good to see him line up on the bench there. 18, Hayes Perham, and 19, Philip Coates. The reserves are Jaden Hunt, Ben Hunt at 21, and Kane Bradley at 22. In my opinion, I believe Ben Hunt will play in this game, to be honest, and don't be surprised if he gets on at some stage. The fact he's been named would suggest that he will play in this game. Now, in my opinion, if Ben Hunt plays in this game, he will start as halfback, which is very dangerous for Manly, and you'll see Tom Duffy get put on the bench, and he could come on as a ball-playing lock, or maybe he'll come on as a halfback and Ben Hunt moves to hooker for Corey Pakes when he gets gassed and tired there. So that's the way that both teams line up in that game. Now, Super Sunday, or should say the Sunday ticket, you'll catch this game on Fox League between the Storm and the Tigers. The Storm, 7 losses in a row. Can you believe it? Now, let's see how they line up in this game after 7 losses. The most the club has ever received in a row. So, Sua Fa'alago at fullback, the two wingers, Will Warbrick and Hugo Peel. Congratulations to Hugo making his debut last week against the Dolphins. Now, the centres are Jack Howarth and Nick Meaney. The halves are Cameron Munster and Jerome Hughes. Up front, Stefano and Harry Grant at dummy half is the captain as well, alongside Josh King. Sean Bloor and Atavalu Lasardi are the back rowers, and the lock forward is Trent Loiero in this game. The bench is Trent Talau, who I thought did a pretty good job when he came on to replace the injured Tyron Wishart last week, who, of course, will not be lining up in this game either. Joe Chan at 15, Davey Mawali at 16, and the 17 is Cooper Clark. Stanley Hewen and Mania Watiri are the 18 and the 19. Now, the reserves are Jack Hetherington, Lazarus Vailepu, and the 22 is Moses Leo. Now, for the Tigers at fullback, no Jareen Buller for at least another few weeks, and no Adam Dewey for at least 4 to 6 weeks with that shoulder injury. So Heath Mason comes into the fullback position this time, which Sunia Taruva doesn't start at fullback. He now goes back to the wing in the 2 jersey. The other winger is Luke Lauli'i. The centres are Patrick Herbert and Taylor May. The halves are Jerome Luai and Jock Madden. Up front, Terrell May, Tristan Hope at dummy half, and Fanua Pole in the number 10 jersey. The back rowers are Sione Fainu, Kai Pearce-Paw, and Alex Twell is the 13 and lock forward. Now, the bench is Latu Fainu, Bunty Afoa, Alex Seyfarth, and Royce Hunt. The 18 is Maverick Geyer and Jarrell Skelton in the 9 19 jersey. Now, the reserves are Charlie Murray, Tony Suka, and Javon Andrews. They are how the Tigers line up. And the final game of the round is between the Canberra Raiders and the Penrith Panthers. You'll catch this Sunday at 4:05 p.m. on Channel 9's Wide World of Sports and, of course, Fox League and KO Sports. This will be played at GIO Stadium. Canberra lineup such as this: at fullback, KO Weeks, and the two wingers, Savelio Tamale and Jed Stewart. The two centres for Canberra, Sebastian Chris and Matt Tomoko. The halves are Ethan Strange and Ethan Sanders. Great to see Strange come back and play in this game. Up front, Corey Horsburgh, Tom Starling and Joe Tarpany. The back rowers, Hudson Young coming back into the side after a stint on the sidelines, 2-week suspension he had. So Simi Sasungi, boy oh boy, he was good last week for Canberra on that edge, Simi Sasungi. And the 13 is Jaden Brayley. Now the 14, Owen Paddy, set to play his first game for the Canberra Raiders in season 2026. I've been calling for this for weeks. I cannot wait to see him play in this game. It's going to be absolutely fantastic. The 15 is Dane Laurie. The 16 is Atta Mariota. And the 17 is Morgan Smithies. The reserves are Chevy Stewart, Jordan Uta. And the reserves are Ethan Alea. 21, Jake Clydesdale. And the 22 is Sione Finau. Now for the Penrith Panthers. Man, they are just such a great team. Fullback, Dylan Edwards. The two wingers, Thomas Jenkins and Brian To'o. The centres are Port Alamotti and Casey McLean. The halves are Blaze Talangi and Nathan Cleary. Up front, Moses Leota, Freddie Lussick at dummy half, and Lindsay Smith in that number 10 jersey. The back rowers, Isaiah Papali'i, Luke Garner, and Isaiah Yeo is also the co-captain alongside Nathan Cleary. Their bench is Jack Cole, the young half there, with Scott Sorensen at 15, Liam Henry at 16, off to the Perth Bears next year. Congratulations to Liam Henry for getting that contract. And the 17 is Isaac Targo, who can obviously come on and play in the back row or in the centres. Billy Phillips at 18 and 19, Billy Scott. The reserves are Kalani Goin, the 29-year-old lock forward they bought from the New Zealand Warriors. Really rate him, so I'd love to see him play a bit more first grade consistently at some stage throughout the season, especially around the origin period. The 21 is Sione Fanua, and the Luron Patea is the 22 for the Penrith Panthers. So that is your team lists for round 10 of the Telstra Premiership, the NRL season of 2026. This is the Rugby League Forecast podcast. If you haven't done so already, please follow me on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, and just click subscribe on that YouTube channel. Thanks, guys.